All right, so here we have some rolling fog. And if I go in here, there's also, just so you know, there's a sky dome light. Without it, there wouldn't be a way for me to render. But if I render it, you can see that the fog is pretty thick. And you can change that thickness and the way that that fog looks. If you click on one of them, either the fog or the haze. Here, I'll just show you what happens when you hide the haze. The fog, it looks like that. When you hide the haze, it looks like that. Okay. But let me just start over. I'm just going to get rid of both of these as well as this light here. And I just have a scene with a sky dome light. Okay, so, and the sky dome light is fairly bright. You can see, there we go. All right, so if I change to my FX menu up here on the upper left, then I see that I got a fluids button. And I find it pretty easy to just go to the examples and then you can play around with the settings of those examples. So just go to fluid example. And you can play with all of these. There's some different kinds of clouds and fogs, but I really like the rolling fog, which just kind of sits in the middle kind of sits on the ground. So middle mouse click and hold and drop it in your scene. And you see it's fairly small compared to my other scene stuff. I'm just going to get rid of my fog camera. You can keep yours if you wish, but I'm just going to get rid of it. Maybe I'll move this up a little bit above that light just so I can select both of these. By the way, you can move things around in your outliner with your middle mouse button. I'm holding my middle mouse. Okay, so I'm going to grab both of these and scale them up. Actually, let me undo that. I'm going to scale them just in the Z and X position, and I'm just going to move it up in Y. And then I'm just going to scale it individually in Y again and move it up. So maybe a little more in Y and move it up. And you can see that right now let's just hide hide the fog, and you can see that it's more the blue is more the haze, and the fog. Let's bring that back on. If I hide the haze, that's where the fog is. So maybe they're actually a little too. Bring them down a little bit. How's that look? Maybe bring that one down a little bit more too. Okay, so I'm going to bring them both back up. And if you look in your attribute editor under one or the other, let's look at the fog again. I'm just going to identify the fog as this more white one, right? If you want, you could just play around with one at the time. I just am hiding by pressing H. So let's take a look at the fog quality here. And you can see there's a lot of different things that you can change. Let's take a look at the shading, because here you can see if I change my color, it's pretty apparent. And you can add in a ramp here if you wish. So to change the color, you make sure you're selected that circle there, and then you could change it to maybe a pink. And you may not see it yet, but if you kind of move around with that, you can also change this to like that. And so you can see now that it's stacked. So you're you can do that as you wish. You can also get rid of those like that, and maybe I'll just bring this back to a white just for now. Okay, you can also change this, bring back to constant if you wish. That depends on how you want it to be, sort of the colors to be stacked. Similarly with opacity, you could change that. So let's take a look at how the opacity looks now. You can change some of these to make it more thick or opaque. And then you can also change the way that it's cut. Right now it's cut across X. I just change it to X, and you can kind of see if you kind of test that out. Y goes across the whole board, but goes more up and down, right? Z is going to go, it's going to be kind of more on the side there too. So, and constant will be sort of more filling the whole space. If you change that, it fills the whole space. So play around with those as you wish. You can also, play with some of the shading quality if you want it to be higher quality. Right now, let's see, I'm not sure about the texture. This is where it's being animated, I believe. So you could play around with that. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Lighting, it's got a self shadow. So if we go in there and let's see this render. Let's back up a tiny bit. And let's change something in here. Let's see if we change the opacity level. Let's bring that back down a little bit. You can see how it's changing there. Okay, so that's kind of interesting. The incandescence, I believe, is off, but let's see if we added like an incandescence, it would turn green, and we could bring that down to, you know, you could see, let's see if where we change some of those parameters, but black just makes it not present. So again, you can play around with these, the color positions, and the drop up shape. The transparency again is kind of the whole thing, more or less transparent. Okay, now let's play around with let's bring the haze back on, turn the fog off for a second. So the haze is this blue right here. Again, let's take a look at it from the side here. You can change it to X, and you see it moves from those. This is the ramp here that it's moving around. You could kind of play around with those if you wish. And you could try the Z, and again, you see it moves it to the other side. You can try constant, and that kind of blends it all together. You could sort of see if it makes a difference when you change things. Y, you know, again, moves up and down kind of nicely. You know, you can play around with that. You could play around with the input bias here. I think that kind of changes, well, it definitely changes the way this ramp looks. Again, transparency. Incandescence right now, it doesn't really seem to have a whole lot of incandescence, but say we made it more yellow. And you can play around here with how the incandescence works. That's kind of neat. So let's just turn that back on, and let's go in there and let's see what happens when we render this. I think it's going to be really, we might have to bring up the settings here. Let's bring up the lighting up to 5 because it's a pretty thick fog. And we see, yeah, it's pretty hard to see. So say, let's click while we have that open. Let's click on the haze there, and let's bring the transparency down a bit. Let's do the same thing for the rolling. And you start to get a little bit more clarity. I'm just moving the camera around. Okay, so fog is pretty fun. You can play, you can have a good time with that, hopefully. And that's it. Thanks so much.